Gosh, I love this box.
It's cute.
It's just so small.
Yep.
And I did it just sitting here at the table. I mean, how great is that?
Pretty great. So, do you think you're ready?
I don't know. There's just so much of it.
That's true. You probably shouldn't try.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing. Just that it's pretty big.
So
it may be a bit much for you.
I see. And you think this is gonna work?
Think what is going to work?
I know what you're doing.
Darling, I was simply wondering why somebody with a YouTube channel about refinishing furniture wouldn't be up for something a little more challenging. But I understand.
All right.
No, show me again that adorable yellow box with the wheat stencil.
Getting up.
It's so cute.
Heading to the door. Sheesh. Let's go. Hi everyone, I'm Andy. Welcome to Furniture Fables. When last I saw you, we were exploring the many wonderful refinishing and flipping skills one can learn with the smallest of makeover projects. But if you really want to put those skills to the test, there is nothing like facing down the monster that is the big project. And while big can certainly mean one single very large piece, in my opinion, the biggest and perhaps scariest of them all is the multi-piece matching bedroom set. And I just so happened to recently meet up with one that, while a bit monstrous, was also full of charming potential. But before we meet our monstrous yet charming main characters, once I had decided to tackle a multi-piece project, I knew I would need to think about space, or maybe more accurately, zones. Working on one piece of furniture can be challenging in terms of workspace, but several is a whole other kettle of fish. And if you don't prep your workspaces, you can quickly find yourself overwhelmed and in trouble. I cleared out all unnecessary objects from my garage space, gave it a good cleaning, and then brought everything in so that I could set it up and give it a good look over. This mid-century solid maple bedroom set by the John Alden Group I had picked up for free from the kindest couple who were clearing out their house to get it ready for sale, and couldn't find a place to even accept it as a donation. They were days away from paying to have it hauled out to the landfill. All of the pieces were in fairly good shape. The majority of scratches and dings were on this footboard here, but the doors on the nightstands and the little slider doors on the headboard did have this faux shutter detail that I am not a fan of. And one of the rods was missing as well on one of the nightstand doors, so I knew I was going to have to address that issue somehow. That smaller bachelor chest looked pretty good, just that dated hardware I also don't love, and a small crack in that top shelf. The shutter effect on this piece I actually liked. It was less fussy and dated than the other design, and the sweet curves of the headboard and the charming feet of the chest and nightstands were giving me all kinds of cottagecore vibes, maybe with a little bit of a Scandinavian twist. So one bright Saturday morning, I began. I started by removing all that dated hardware from the doors and drawers, and then my fabulous crew came out and helped bring all of those pieces out onto the driveway, and we started to clean. Remember, it was extremely hot and dry here. thus the hose. This was so great. If you have some willing family, friends, roommates, it is great to enlist their help here at the start. For me, one of the toughest things with a project this big is just getting over the mental hurdle of starting. But bolstered by how light these many hands were making this stage of work, I was so encouraged and energized. Which is good, because you will see, I'm going to need that energy. John was able to stick around and help with some scuff sanding. He used our orbital sander to scuff sand the pieces that were in pretty good shape, while I took the footboard and started sanding out all of those scratches and dings. This footboard is a great example of why I invested in my Surfprep sander. Its size, shape, and cushion pads makes sanding finials like this a breeze. Then I borrowed the orbital from John and took all of the finish and stain off the 3-drawer fronts. Again, that Surfprep was so great for getting into that inset detail on the bachelor chest drawer. So here you can see that missing faux shutter rod and actually how loose the others were. These nightstand doors were really starting to worry me. Those big hinges were also not a favorite detail, and the doors themselves were just not sitting square. So as I wiped back the dust on everything else and prepared to bring the pieces back into the garage, I thought about whether or not to keep the doors on the nightstands at all. But before making that final decision, I decided to try out my idea for the little slider doors on the headboard. I mixed up a good amount of Bondo, a strong, tough 2-part wood filler, and spread it all over those fake shutters. Pushing it in and down as best I could, I filled in all of that space in hopes of creating a new flat door front. After the Bondo dried, I used my sander to shape and flatten the new top, first using an 80 grit and then moving to a 180 grit paper. As you can see, it was far from perfect. Oftentimes, and even with more average filling jobs, you may need 2 or 3 coats of a wood filler. So I mixed up a second batch of Bondo, spread that all out again, pressing into all of those little nooks and crannies and taking the material right up to the edges of the frame of the door. After that had all dried and I sanded it, you can see it's looking pretty good, but there were still a few little holes, so I used some plastic wood to fill those in. Since I had the plastic wood out, I used it again to fill in the cracks you can see here in those front feet on our nightstands. This is really common in vintage wooden furniture with feet constructed like this. And while it looks perfectly fine in a wood finish, not so once it's painted. So always keep a lookout for those little cracks that need filling before you start painting. I set the nightstands up on a table by themselves and gave their feet a good sanding. And then I did a bit of final sweeping up and wipe down to get all of the dust off of the pieces. Then I remembered I needed to do a quick repair on that shelf on the inside of the chest, and so I used some Gorilla Glue along the line of that shallow crack, and then worked it in using the blade of my utility knife. Once I had done that, I used my frog tape to pull that crack together by taping from underneath the shelf and bringing that tape up to the top. And I wiped back any excess glue. Then I gave those finials and turn details on the footboard one last dust removing wipe down, and then I got out the primer. I am using Zinsser Bin Shellac primer for this project. This is a great tried and true primer that will block stains, any bleed through, and odors. I'm going to be rolling it on with a microfiber mini roller and getting anything my roller can't reach with a standard paintbrush. When you have a multi-piece job like this, it is really great if you can do any and all prep work needed on every piece and have them all ready to go, set up with space around each one of them so that once that primer is open, you can just hit everything. You really want to set it up so that you minimize starting and stopping. That will just tire you out and frustrate you. And don't keep looking up at everything you still need to get to. Just keep moving forward. And maybe whistle while you work. Keep going, Andy. You can do it. You're a machine. Go, Andy, go, go. You can do it. Also, don't be surprised if just when you think you're done, you see something you forgot. Look, oh my gosh, I think we're almost done. Oh my gosh, we've finished. This is, the other side of the footboard. Dang it. Okay, yeah. Now we're, okay, also the inside of the chest. Right, of course. And look, I have a tent in my garage. This is a spray tent John got me for my birthday. This is my first time using it. I'm kind of excited. Yes, that's right, folks. It's time to get the paint sprayer out. I am going to be using my Flexio 3000 sprayer by Wagner. This is a great, easy to use, beginner-friendly paint sprayer that does a really nice job with furniture painting. I'm not a beginner with it, but definitely also not a super experienced sprayer. So every time I get this tool out, I refresh my understanding by rereading the instructions. Here you can see how easily it comes together with that nozzle tip that you adjust depending on which direction you are spraying in. I am going to be spraying Dixie Belle's Silk All-in-One Mineral Paint in the color Salt Water, which is a really nice, bright, fresh white with just a hint of warmth. It's always best to give your paint a good stir and then strain it before adding it to your container. This paint could probably be sprayed as is, but it looked a little bit thick to me, so I added just a few sprays of water to thin it out. Then I did a quick test on a board, spraying both horizontally and vertically, making sure the paint was landing nicely. And then I was off to the races. So again, I am no expert when it comes to spraying, but I can tell you that consistency is the best word I can think of to sum up a good spray technique. You want consistency in distance, speed, and overlap to give yourself the best result. But this sprayer is really so friendly and forgiving. I am always really impressed, honestly, with the smooth and beautiful finish I get whenever I use it. You can really see what a great advantage it is to have a paint sprayer if you are doing a multi-piece project like this. There is no denying how much time spraying is saving me. Oh, here we go. Lift, Andy. The Flexio 3000 sprayer by Wagner will run you somewhere in the neighborhood of about $170. It has actually two separate spray nozzles. One is better for larger jobs or projects like painting walls, and this one that I am using, the detail finish nozzle, is better for smaller projects. It is obviously a much more expensive tool than a basic paintbrush, but it really is a time saver, and this tool claims that it can paint a wall 10 times faster than a brush, and I believe it. I'm actually looking forward to trying it sometime soon inside. The back of the chest was a little too deep for the sprayer to reach everything, so I busted out my trusty Zibra chiseled wedge brush and then also hit the finials and that top edge of the footboard with a Zibra round brush. This paint did a really great job laying down both sprayed and brushed. Remember how I was saying how important it is to be organized? Well, about this time, I realized I had totally forgotten about the side rails. So I gave them a priming with some Slick Stick by Dixie Belle, which is a great primer if you have a surface that is a little bit glossy still. I had scuff sanded them, but they still looked a little shiny to me. And so I primed them and let them dry before catching them up to the other pieces. Then I prepped the drawer fronts. I had decided to give them a paint wash treatment made of a 50-50 mix of that saltwater paint and water. And check out this dandy of a brush. This is Dixie Belle's Scarlet brush, a beautiful synthetic brush that is so great with any kind of glaze or stain or faux finish as well. Using that Scarlet brush, I applied the wash all over the bachelor chest drawer front and then used my favorite lint-free rags to wipe it back. Just a little side note, I love how Maple takes a paint wash like this. It just seems to really, really work with that wood grain. Then I took the drawer over and set it back into the chest and stood back and took a good look. Yep, we're looking good. So I did the same treatment with the other two drawer fronts, and then I took a look at the whole family all together. This is kind of an important step to do at this stage. You really want to make sure that the balance of solids and washed wood is what you're looking for before you move on. Things were looking good, so it was time for some bells and whistles. This is Blue Glass Ornate Rice Decoupage Paper by Dixie Belle, a beautiful Scandinavian folk art-inspired print. I decided to apply it to the back walls of those side cubbies on the headboard. I fitted the paper in and folded it where I needed to trim it, and then used some Dixie Belle top coat in flat as the glue for the paper. I painted that top coat onto the back wall and then carefully installed that paper, smoothing it out from the top down and then the centers out to the edges. I used my brush to add a little more top coat under that one corner there, and then I did a fitting for my second piece, laid down that top coat again, and then lined up the patterns and smoothed everything out. Then I brushed top coat over all of the paper, making sure to get the edges and where those two pieces of rice paper joined up really, really well. You can see that little back panel was a little bit loose at this point. That's no biggie to fix, and I could kind of use it to my advantage laying down the top coat. Then I did the exact same thing over on the other cubby. So now for those two little sliding doors, I got out two separate pieces of the decoupage paper, and I looked carefully at how I wanted the pattern to work here. These doors will, of course, slide together, and so I wanted to make sure that the patterns on them would be mirror images of themselves. Once I saw how I would need to trim them, I folded the rice paper inside the edges of that new flat front I had created out of the Bondo. And whoosh, trimmed it up, checked it to make sure it was a good fit, and then painted on the top coat glue. I did the same thing on the other door, and here you can see just how workable this rice paper is. I used to think that rice paper was super delicate and was afraid it would just, fall apart in my hands. It's not like that at all. It's pretty tough, and as long as that top coat is wet, I can pull it up and reposition it, no problem. Okay, at this point, I made the call. The nightstand doors were out, so I needed to fill those hardware holes in with a little more plastic wood, and then I also decided to pretty up the backs of them by installing some more of that blue ornate paper. As that was drying, I started to do my finish sanding. This is a superfine grit RAD pad by Surfprep. Just a little bit of finish sanding makes a big difference in how your pieces feel. It just kicks off all of those little rough, bumpy bits and leaves your surfaces so smooth and buttery. I used a medium grit RAD pad to sand back the filler on all of those hardware holes, and I have to tell you, at this point, I was starting to feel a bit tired and grumpy. But then something kind of lovely occurred. A gallant gentleman arrived. He pulled over a chair, handed me a cold beverage, and asked me if I would like him to just take care of adding those 2 shelves I would now need for the nightstands, since they were newly doorless. I said, yes, please, that would be so fantastic. And I had a little break as I thought, sometimes it's good to let the guys have a turn with the power tools. I took those 2 little shelves John had made me and gave them the same paint wash treatment I had done with the drawer fronts. Now it was time for all of the finishing touches. John and I brought everything inside, and I took those 2 little sliding door pulls and gave them a good sanding, and then set them into a cardboard box, applied a little Boss primer, and then a couple of layers of the saltwater paint. I had some rice paper left over, so I decided to apply it to the insides of those chest doors. I used my Zibra Palm Pro. This is a great brush for top coating, and using that same technique as before, installed the paper. You may notice that I had added some contact paper to the shelves. It was pretty, but I decided it just wasn't hitting my Scandi cottage feel that I was going for, so I took that out and decided instead to install this textured white wallpaper. I thought its architectural pattern worked really well with that clear Scandinavian folk print. I fit it for the 2 shelves inside the chest, as well as for the 3 drawers, and then installed it using a chip brush with some Sure Grip adhesive by Zinsser. Okay. Finally, time to seal up this whole project. I am using Gator hide by Dixie Belle, the toughest top coat that they offer. Now, this may be a bit confusing. Silk all-in-one paint is just what it sounds like, an all-in-one. It contains both a primer and a top coat. But in my opinion, a bedroom set in white, one that may be used by kids, needs a good separate top coat. If I were making this for my family's use, I might skip it. Or if this were a piece that would not be getting a lot of wear and tear, I also might skip the top coat with an all-in-one paint. But remember that footboard? Yeah, we really want to protect this paint. So here I am applying it to the top of the bachelor chest. You can see I've missed a few little spots. That's kind of typical. It's really important with Gator hide, or really any top coat, to resist the temptation to go back and hit those spots. Just leave them until they are completely dried. You will get them on that second coat go around. After this project, I promised myself that someday soon I will practice top coating with my spray gun. Because yes, this was a lot to do with my little brush. But it was doable. Dixie Belle sells a sponge, by the way, specifically for laying down Gator hide. But with all of these surfaces I needed to do, I felt that my little Zibra Palm Pro would be the best choice. And it did a great job. Every so often, I gave it a little spray of water and then blotted that off just so that it would be slightly damp, not wet. And just like that priming phase, I just kept moving forward, giving everything 2 good coats. Okay, time to put those original mini little pulls back into the sliding doors and install the doors themselves. It was actually no big shock to me that the doors were a little sticky when I first tried to slide them. I took them outside and gave them a quick sanding on their bottom edge there, and then I added some easy peasy wax spray, also by Dixie Belle, to those bottom edges. After that, they definitely moved a lot better, but still a little bit sticky, so I added some more wax to the track itself. And then we were in business. Time to bring the team all together. Okay, do you remember this monstrously outdated bedroom set with its faux shutters, its scuffed and dinged footboard, unwanted but full of cottagecore potential? And here they all are now. I think that this one was a friendly monster. It just kind of smiles at you, doesn't it? Fresh and bright, this Scandinavian cottage-inspired design is cozy and modern all at once in its new blue and white with a touch of whitewashed wood design. All of the original features like the carved solid wood waving headboard trim and those fancy sweet feet no longer look dated. Instead, they unapologetically embrace a modern cottage aesthetic. The nightstands look so light and fresh without those clunky doors and with their new lucite and white hardware, while their original maker's stamp is still proudly visible in their refreshed drawers. But I think the star of the show has got to be those sweet sliders. They are just so full of cottage charm. This gentle giant Scandinavian snowman seems like the perfect mascot for our giant Scandi Cottagecore makeover. What first had me intimidated and reluctant, I have met and uncovered what was always there: a great team, a beautiful set, and a friend ready to welcome any weary traveler.
Whew, that was a lot. So, what did it cost me? Well, let's talk the numbers. The set itself was completely free. I used about $10 worth of primer. The paint was a bit pricey. I bought 4 of those 16-ounce containers, which cost me just under $100. 5 of those lucite pulls were $24. I used about $20 worth of gator hide, and then another, say, $30 for wood filler, chip brushes, rags, liner paper, etc. And that puts my out-of-pocket costs right at about $185. So how long did this monster take me? Well, I kept careful track of my time, and interestingly, it came right out at about 20 hours of work. If I pay myself approximately $35 an hour, that comes out to $700 for my labor, putting my list price for the set at $875, which is a pretty good value if you think about it. If I were to purchase something similar at, say, IKEA, once tax and delivery were factored in, I would be probably a little over $700. And if I were to purchase a solid maple bedroom set from, say, Ethan Allen or something similar,
I would be well up into the thousands of dollars. So to my mind, a great example of the power of furniture redesign. Something that was headed to the landfill stays out of it. And someone in need of a new bedroom set can get something of good quality for a good price with a pretty good helping of customized cottage charm. Thank you for sticking with me all the way here to the end, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this monster makeover and maybe are a little bit encouraged to try one for yourself. Hey, if I can do one, so can you. I will see you next time for more Furniture Fables.